Can you guys still?
All right. Good morning and welcome to the OREA kickoff to the year, our health and wellness, financial wellness conversation today on our educational seminar. My name is John Green with Association Member Benefits Advisors. We'll do a couple of housekeeping notes here before we have more folks sign in here. Just know that all participants are in a listen-only mode. And what that means is if you have questions or you want to chat, feel free to just drop those in the chat feature, the Q&A feature. My co-host and our leader up in the Oklahoma area, David Moritz, will monitor that chat. And if there's something we need to stop and talk about, he'll stop and pause us, and we'll answer those questions as we go throughout here as well. I want you to grab a pen and paper today. We're going to have a bunch of different conversations about a bunch of different things. And we've got a special guest that's joined us today as well to talk a little health and wellness with us as well. So feel free to sit back, enjoy this. Get your cell phones ready because we're going to have a opportunity for you to communicate back and forth with us as well. But before I jump off into our agenda, our special speaker, all of our topics today, I want to give Sabra just a little bit of a time to kind of share with us her New Year's message and kind of remind us what OREA is doing on your behalf to start the year off.
Good morning, everyone. As you know, Oklahoma has a legislative session every year, and we are getting ready to start that session. It begins February 7th at noon with the State of the State address from our governor, and then it'll be everyone hitting the ground running from then February 7th until the end of May. And we don't know, haven't seen a lot of language in bills yet. The deadline for that to appear is January 20th. And so we'll be waiting at our computers for language to appear to see, what's out there. We'll be ready for any bad legislation. There's some talk of cost of living adjustment legislation for retirees, but I haven't seen any language for that either. So we'll see what happens. Well, we know that inflation is coming upon our economy right now, and there's talk about whether that's temporary or going to be long term. But I think it's still, unless we had a crystal ball, it's too early to predict that yet. We know our state has the highest revenue in state history that they have to budget this year, and there's talk of tax cuts, which I don't recommend, considering we have law in place that prohibits our legislature from raising revenue without a supermajority. But you never know. We'll see what happens. Stay tuned. OREA is there every day at the state capitol to keep an eye on legislation, good or bad. And we appreciate our members who make those phone calls and write emails and talk to legislators and advocate on behalf of all of Oklahoma's education retirees. And that's what we spend the bulk of our time doing from February to May. We also have a state convention coming up. We've had to postpone, for a couple of years because of the pandemic, but it is going to happen April 5th. In Edmond at the Hilton Garden Inn and Edmond Convention Center. And we're really looking forward. And we think our theme is very appropriate coming back. So the theme of our convention is Survivor, because we have all survived the last couple of years and all the challenges it has brought to everyone. So we're going to celebrate our retired educators and carry on with the convention. So John, thanks. I'm excited to hear the new information today.
Okay. I'm excited about what we've got to cover as well. We've got a few things to cover before we introduce our special speaker, but I appreciate that, Sabra. Again, my name is John Green. If you've just joined us, this is your first webinar educational series that you participated in. We welcome you. I live a little bit north of Houston. I work with Association Member Benefits Advisors. My wife is a second grade elementary school teacher in the same elementary school that she and my 3 kids went to as well. That is a picture of me down in the bottom of the page because I got my start in Bethany, Oklahoma at Lake Park Elementary School. And then before we moved down to Texas, but you'll see us following the Bears everywhere. And Sabra now has the upper hand again, even though we won the Big 12 football championship of OSU. the Cowpokes beat our Bears in the basketball this past weekend, so we'll go back and forth on that. But my role usually has been the past 20 plus years is working with educators in school to help them understand what their retirement benefits are like and what it looks like on the other side of retirement. I know we've got a lot of retirees on the call here today, and we're proud to work with OREA and really to bring those benefits to you. And just a reminder, and Sabra talked a little bit about it, how OREA works on your behalf. They're a big pension watchdog. She mentioned the pension growth this past year, and that's a great news. States all across the country had record years in pension growth. That's good for your solvency, good for future retirees, all that kind of stuff like that. But what that does to that legislative group, they say, there's this pot of money over here. Should we take something out of it and do something with it? Should we not make our regular contributions? What do we need to do with that money? And that's why OREA is working on your behalf to watch out that pension, what you've all worked for, what maybe your sons or daughters are working for now as a teacher, to make sure those are there. Preserve the way that you get your benefits, preserve the way that the state gives funding towards those things as well, keeping you connected. David and I are so excited to be able to see you in person here in April. It's been way too long since we've been able to do that. We're excited to get out there, and we want to continue to keep you connected as well. And then to partner up together to bring you all sorts of new discounts, benefits, and things like that as we go through here. And some of these things, as you've seen here, the advantage of having OREA and AMBA together, it helps fill those gaps that weren't there from your state benefits, your district benefits, things like that. If you do leave the state for whatever reason, there's no network that's tied to it. They're portable. You can go take them wherever you want to. And then many OREA members tell us that they start a second career after they leave the classroom, but they still have responsibilities back at home. Adult children maybe who have aged out of their benefits that they can't get no longer from the district. You can extend your benefits that way. Or if you're still taking a responsibility for some elderly parents, you can extend your benefits to them as well. So there's some opportunities there. David and his team can help you out doing that. We're going to talk about a lot of things today in a very short period of time. We're going to cover some new laws, Social Security and Medicare changes that will impact you as well. We're going to talk to those of you who are on Health Choice and kind of show you how you can get the most out of that plan, and then identify some gaps that are out there and share with you some tips that you can act on immediately. But I want to bring you some healthy conversation now. So Sabra, will you introduce our special guest? And I'm not going to ask you to tell any secrets about her, all that kind of stuff like that. But if you'll unmute and tell us who our special guest is, and we'll let her kind of share some healthy tips with us.
Yes, everyone, I would like you to meet Anessa Chaddock. She works with the YMCA of the greater Oklahoma City area, and she just happens to be my little sister. So she and I go way back. We've known each other a long
You've known her all your life, huh?
Yes. And she has been in the field of wellness throughout her career, and even before she finished college. And if I need a tip on how to be healthy, she is the first person that I contact. And so I'm excited for her to share some tips with everyone today on it. Since we're talking about financial wellness, we're also going to talk about our physical wellness. So I'm excited for her to share some tips with everyone today.
All right, Anissa, take it away for us.
Okay, can you see me?
We can see you perfectly.
Okay, and can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I cannot see myself, so I just wanted to make sure. Well, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. And so we're talking about wellness. So I want to start with a wellness moment, if we would. So if everybody would, if you're sitting, sit up straight, tall, drop your shoulders, relax them. Put your chin up, make sure your chin is not in your chest, and let's take a deep breath in and hold it for 4, and then a deep breath out. And again, nice deep breath in, hold it, and then a nice deep breath out. Okay, and we're gonna take our arms above our head, do a nice stretch, hold it at the top. You can lace your fingers together and then drop it down, nice and slow. And let's do that one more time. Arms over your head, lace your fingers. Okay, nice and slow, you can drop it down. All right, hopefully that felt good. I do have some healthy tips for you today. First of all, I would like to ask, I know I won't be able to hear your answers, but I think I'll know what your answer is how many of you have made a New Year's resolution and then kept it for the first 30 days, and then after it, then it kind of fell off to the wayside? Does that sound familiar to anyone? Yes, I see you raising your hand, Sabra. So that's pretty typical. You're not alone, that most people make resolutions, they have good intentions, but don't carry it out through the rest of the year. And that's okay. So what I'd like to challenge you to do this year is not to make a resolution. And I know that maybe sounds a little counterintuitive from a health and wellness professional, but I really want you to focus on creating healthy habits and not making resolutions. And this is something we have to focus on every single day, and just one thing at a time. Because a lot of times we set ourselves up for failure because we set really lofty goals and try to do too much at one time. And so I think that's why we're unsuccessful in meeting those resolutions. So I'd really like to challenge you to focus on 7 healthy habits for the new year. Number 1, and this is what I'm really concerned about, particularly during the pandemic, is that we've let our preventive care fall to the wayside. So I really want to challenge you to make sure that you get all your preventive care taken care of. And we know that this is covered under your medical plan, but if you're not sure what is covered, please reach out, to your plans accordingly, and that may be covered in your financial wellness step when you talk about health choice. But really focus on getting your preventive care. Number 2 thing I want you to focus on this year is getting social. And I know that's been really challenging during the pandemic. And so focus on social distancing, focus on connecting virtually when you can, and then in person, if at all possible. But we know that that's important to keep those social connections up. The third healthy habit I would like for you to focus on this year is keeping your mind sharp, whether that's doing crossword puzzles or developing a new hobby or whatever the case may be. But, we not only need to focus on our physical well-being, but we also need to focus on our mental well-being. Then comes to number 4, physical activity. And that doesn't mean that you have to go out and start powerlifting or anything like that. It's just being physically active in small ways, whether that's taking a walk with your dog or perhaps joining a gym, which would help you meet some of those other goals, like being socially active as well as physically active. And at the end of these 7 habits, I'm going to tell you an easy way to do that, to join a gym, perhaps. Pay close attention to your eyes and your ears. Make sure that you're getting those checked on. Also, making healthy food choices. And again, don't try to do everything at one time, just do small changes. A great website to help you focus on one small healthy habit is Shape Your Future. So you can either, look that up on your smartphone device or on your computer, but that's a great resource within our state. But look those up, and you may have seen their commercials on TV as well about changing, one healthy habit at a time. And then, of course, managing your medicines. Reach out to your local pharmacist on making sure that you don't have any medication contraindications, as well as anything that you're taking over the counter. And then be sure to discuss that with your healthcare provider when you go in for your preventive care. Sabra didn't mention this, but I am the executive director of Healthy Living at the YMCA of Greater Oklahoma City, in addition to being her little sister. And so we have a great program for seniors called Silver Sneakers, as well as full access to any of our 14 branches across the greater Oklahoma City area. But what I'd like to encourage you to do, in case you don't live in Oklahoma City, is just check with your insurance provider, call their customer service number and ask what fitness benefits you may have. They may cover silver sneakers, or they may cover some other benefits for you. But that's the one healthy habit I'd like to challenge you today to do, is call your insurance provider and see what fitness benefits are available. And one thing I do want to mention through our YMCA is particularly during the pandemic, we have now started a program called Y on Demand. And so even if you don't want to join the gym, you can join our Y on Demand program for just $15. And all those, you can have access to exercise classes on your smart device or your computer at any time for $15. So, very financially feasible, as well as a great way to get your physical activity in and keep social distancing and healthy if you need to continue to do that. So thank you again for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I do love my sister. Take care.
Anissa, thank you very much. Appreciate you joining us today to get us started off on the year right, especially when that cold weather rolls in. People don't want to get out, but I'm glad that there is this virtual option now. That's really pretty cool. So
absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me.
You bet. You bet. Thank you very much. Take care.
You too. Have a great day.
All right. And a lot of stuff that Anissa told us, I'm going to share with you a little bit about how you can connect with your healthcare provider to find some of those benefits that are out there for you. So let's go ahead and jump in here and talk about some new laws that came up this year, as well as maybe some things that related to Social Security and Medicare as well. The first new law that's kind of an interesting one that came up is related to surprise medical billing, or what's called balanced billing. This was a law that went into effect back with the COVID 2020 bill. And it was a wide ranging law that just had lots of different things in it, but it went into effect January 1st of this year. And it tries to solve that problem of when you have an out-of-network provider that is part of your in-network procedure. So maybe you go to the doctor, you have a procedure, and maybe a radiologist is outside the network and charges you an additional amount you weren't expecting. What this new law says that you have to, out-of-network providers have to give 72 hours notice prior to a procedure, would allow you to shop around, but are also, most importantly, to know that you could be expecting a bill outside of what your insurance covers out there. It doesn't change anything related to copays, deductibles, co-insurance clauses, and things like that. It just takes that dispute and communication out of the process. It impacts air ambulance providers, and we're not quite sure yet how it does that. But the really important thing to understand is it does not impact ground ambulance providers. So you've got 75+% of the ground ambulance providers in the state of Oklahoma that aren't part of an insurance network at all, that will bill you over and above what any type of contracted rate is. This law does not impact them. So it still makes that ambulance ride a little bit bumpy from a financial standpoint, but we'll keep monitoring this and kind of hopefully give you some updates when we see how this works out. I know that the healthcare providers have been preparing for this. I've talked to a bunch of them. They've got, steps that they do. And so it's really important to understand where some of your best places to go within your plan to make sure that you don't have some of these surprise bills out there. And we'll walk you through that. All right. For those of you who are on Social Security and just got one of your first payments, you saw that money go up. There was about a 6% increase in the cost of living for Social Security the first part of this year. Average is about $92, max about almost $200. That went up. Well, the problem is when that goes up, so does Medicare. Medicare Part B went up about $22 this month for the year, and continues to go up. So when I went back and looked a little bit about where those cost of living increases took place over the past decade, Social Security has gone up about 19% in cost of living increases, while Medicare has gone up about 58%. So you can see that Medicare inflation continues to outpace cost of living increases on the Social Security side, but just know that these numbers are out there. A lot of these may be indexed based on your income as well. So we'll talk about that just briefly as well to make sure you understand what that is. There are some changes in Medicare as far as the Part D prescription drug plan. And so we've got some small changes there. The deductible's going up about $35. The coverage gap, or the donut hole, is widening by about $300. At some point later this quarter, we're going to have a Medicare webinar, and David and I are going to walk through and explain all the alphabet soup, how that works, what all that means, and help you understand where some of your gaps could be, even if you're on Medicare or you're preparing to be on Medicare in the next few years. The biggest thing that took place just this past year, or actually has been taking place for the past 10 years, many generations or many administrations have been putting these cuts into place, are cuts to Medicare. And it's cuts in reimbursement rates, it's cuts in types of procedures and things like that. We're going to get into it much more in depth with Medicare, but just let you know that these are things that are taking place right now. And the way that this works, this is on top of any type of increases in copays, deductibles, premiums, and all that. The reimbursement rate is really what the doctor, how he can make his money and stay alive, for lack of a better term, based on that reimbursement rate. And we'll give you an example. Say there's an OREA member, Grace, who's had cancer 8 years ago. Outcome was fine, but now she's receiving some type of IV therapy once a month to keep her immune system strong, to keep it this, to keep from getting cancer recurrence out there. She goes to a physician's clinic because she doesn't live in an urban area. There's not really a Medicare hospital nearby, that type of thing. So she receives her IV treatments through a physician's clinic. Well, Medicare, by cutting the reimbursement rates for certain medications, for certain procedures by even just 2%, the physician decides they can no longer take Medicare, and they decide not to participate in the plan. Well, Grace has the choice now. Does she stay with the familiar faces in the comfortable area close by that she's been going to for 8 years? Or does she have to go somewhere new that may be further away and receive her treatment, because that's what's reimbursed by Medicare? That's how it impacts individuals when Medicare makes these minor cuts. And there were a few laws back in, not laws, I would say, budget bills back in late November, December of last year that stayed some of these cuts. They slowed down the decrease in reimbursement rates, for lack of a better term. That's been a good thing, but it's not completely what needs to be out there. And so whenever David and I talk about some of the Medicare changes, just know that what was covered last year may be covered totally different this year, or your provider may no longer cover that service because Medicare doesn't reimburse enough for it. So those are some changes that are out there for you. Please, 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 because most of the time Medicare rates are indexed based on your income. If you had a life-changing event last year, like a marriage, a divorce, a death of a spouse, file SSA 44, write that down, SSA 44. It's a Medicare income related monthly adjusted amount. It will help you get ahead of having to pay a higher premium for Medicare. And so you can come in, file that adjustment in there, and possibly get your Medicare premiums reduced, depending upon what you did. So especially for those of you teachers that maybe are drawing your pension now, but you were working a second career that you've decided, I'm no longer going to work that second career, so your income goes down significantly. Make sure you possibly file that, because it could impact you as well. Okay. All right. Anissa sort of kind of gave us a lead into this about knowing your plans. Part of my role, and David and his team's role, is to help you understand your plan. Whether you're on Health Choice, about 50% of retired educators are, whether you're on your district plan, whether you're on a spouse's plan, whether you're on Medicare, understand your copays, your deductibles, your coinsurance, and your maximum out-of-pocket expenses, and how they all work together. It's so important that you understand that, because not only is it being a good consumer, but it helps you avoid some of those financial pitfalls that could happen, or you can see where those pitfalls could be if something happened to you. And we're going to share with you that in just a moment. I want to talk about it, kind of springboard off of Anissa's conversation about how to be a better healthcare consumer. And then I'm going to show you what Health Choice has done on your behalf to help you be a better healthcare consumer. First and foremost, understand your insurance coverage. Again, that's what David and his team do in Oklahoma for you. They can review what coverage you have, show you where your gaps are, show you where your out-of-pocket expenses, things that were covered last year, may not be covered this year. Take advantage of those perks and incentives. And Anissa talked about the silver sneakers. You'll see sometimes different health plans will have programs for, if you get your mammograms, they'll give you a $100 gift card, or colonoscopy, something like that. Take advantage of those type of things that are out there, especially that preventative care, and don't skip that preventative care. So many people these past couple of years, for fear of COVID, have held off on some of those tests and those exams. Don't skip that, because that can really make a difference for you in the long run. And then ask about pricing transparency and shop around for services. It's okay to do that. Need to be a better healthcare consumer. I'll give you just a short story about my wife. As you know, as a teacher, when you get sick, there's no time to be out of the classroom. Sometimes you can't find subs, things like that. That first cold front blows through, and we always get sinus infections in our house. My wife knew it was sinus infection, called the doctor. The doctor said, we can't see you. You need a COVID test. Set up a teledoc visit, so you can visit virtually with the doctor. So my wife does that. 15 minutes on the phone with the doctor virtually, only to tell her, you got to take a test before you come see us. We're not going to prescribe you anything, because by the time you see us, your sinus infection will be gone, and it really doesn't do you any good. My wife needed to breathe to get back in the classroom. She hangs up. She gets a bill for $200 for that 15 minutes. If she would have been told beforehand, or she would have asked beforehand, what's the price for the teledoc visit, she might have decided to spend that $200 somewhere else. But she took advantage of the school clinic. So just understand what your benefits are, and understand what your insurance covers, and ask for price transparency with your doctor, because just because it's easy doesn't mean it's free or cheap. All right, Health Choice members. And we've got about 50% of OREA members that have selected Health Choice. It's the biggest plan in the state for state employees, state retirees as well, for teachers as well. I'd encourage you to use their app. It's a single sign-on, so that you can find all your information that you need. It's out there 24/7. You can get to Swift MD, which can really help you with doctor visits out there. And it allows you to chat with someone who can walk you through the process, all on your phone. So I encourage you to get that app out there. With the telehealth, telemedicine, again, this is another way that you can do that. You can use who you want to. You still have your copays and deductibles and things like that. If you use Swift MD for your telemedicine, and you're not in the high deductible health plan, there's no charge. So it's another way to make your dollar stretch further out there. It's a small fee if you're in the high deductible health plan. Once your deductibles, or until your deductibles met, then there's no cost for that as well. But you need to register for Swift MD. It's a great way to talk to a doctor 24/7, kind of go over those symptoms, things like that you may think. Could it be COVID? Could it just be a sinus infection? Could it be allergies? Whatever that kind of stuff is. They also have some wellness programs, just like Anissa talked about through the YMCA. They have a wellness app that'll track your things like that, give you incentives, things of that nature as well. It's on that Health Choice Benefits app. So take advantage of that. If you're a smoker, have somebody smoking in your household, they will give you lots of medication, lots of services to help you quit, things like that, and make it so much easier for you to do so and track your process as well. Then in your different plans, you've got the ability to go to a select program, which has certain treatments and certain things in there that not only give you incentives, but all the procedures are free, or they're covered underneath your health plan. So it's really a neat way. Shop your doctors. It's a way to be a better consumer of your health plans. These are some of the numbers out here. I encourage you to write these down to get involved. Call the customer care line out there. Go to healthchoiceok.com. You can find all of those things out there that can help you become a better consumer with your healthcare. All right. So David and I have looked at all the changes in Medicare this year. We've looked at Health Choice. We've looked at a lot of the different plans in the Oklahoma area. And no matter whether you're under 65 and on Medicare, or if you're over 65 and you're on Medicare or Medicare supplement, there are 4 huge glaring gaps that we find out there that you need to be aware of. There is no home health care or facility care in any one of these policies if something happens to you. Medicare every year cuts the number of procedures that would qualify you for some type of rehabilitation services. So that throws you more in your responsibility. But then on top of that, once you're past the rehab stage, there's no care. beyond that for a facility care, for someone to come into your house and take care of you in certain ways. There are about 60% of the expenses related to a cancer diagnosis or care after a heart attack or a stroke that are not part of reimbursed of this plan. We talked a little bit about that emergency transportation at the beginning of the new law. There's so many gaps that are out there for that. And of course, there's no final expense coverage in the end when you pass away in any of your health plans or Medicare plans out there, so that you're aware of that. Okay. We've talked about all the healthy side of things from your body, from your health side. Let's talk about from your finances. And I want to concentrate on 4 quick areas: spending, insurance, planning and organizing, and how to protect your nest egg as you age and as we move forward here. So I'm going to challenge you to do some of these things, write these down, and we'll make some of these resources available to you. I want to hit real quickly on the budget items. We talk about inflation, and Saber touched on this, how inflation is going up, up, and up. We can do some minor things, dial that thermostat back, clip coupons, things like that. It really doesn't impact us as much as those 3 big budget items. So I want to share with you some of the new trends that are out there, some terms you may hear that can help you save money on the big budget items. Because house prices are so high at the moment, if you have more house than you need, give you an example. My mom lived by herself in the house that we grew up in. It's 2-story, 4-bedroom with a staircase where the thermostat's upstairs. I'm not real kicked in the shorts for my 81-year-old mom to climb the stairs all the time. It may be time for us to look at downsizing, look at bringing a house that maybe is much more cost effective, cost efficient, things like that, because the pricing for housing is at the top. You may be able to make some money off your home. You're going to hear this term house hacking. And house hacking is just a way for you to make money, or people make money off of their home. It can be everything from taking in an extra tenant, so to speak, a renter, a roommate in your house, to putting your home in some type of a rental pool for vacations, things of that nature, depending upon where you live. Especially in Oklahoma, if you're in rural property, people are willing to pay big money to come have a farm experience and give you an opportunity that way as well. Transportation is another area where we spend a lot of money, whether it's on insurance, gas, or just the upkeep of a vehicle. Used vehicles are so hard to find these days. If you've got an unused car, one that you don't use very much, you might want to consider possibly selling that, making a lot more money and saving you money on the backside. And then using that passport program, that free benefit that OREA makes available to all members for your meal prep, cut down on your waste, things like that, your food waste, and then use it for if you're going dining out to save you money that way. So those are some ways you can save on the big 3 budget items. I want to talk just briefly about ways you can save on your home and auto insurance as well. I encourage you every year to go through the process of looking and reevaluating your deductibles, helping to understand if I've got a $200 deductible or a $50 deductible, if I raise that up to $500 or $1,000, could I save a pretty good amount of money out of my pocket that way? Look at your mileage usage on your car. With so many of us now not traveling very much because of COVID, not driving as much because of COVID, you may ask your insurance agent to re-rate your auto insurance because you're driving less miles, and that would go down in that regards. Look for affinity discounts. Because you're an educator or a prior educator, retired educator, there are companies out there that will give you 5-10% off of your auto or home insurance. That can save you money that way. And then also look at your policy and see if you've got specialty coverage that you no longer need. You may have had pets and you had pet coverage in the past, but you don't have pets anymore. You don't need pet coverage. You may have towing on your auto insurance, but you've got a AAA membership. So you may have duplicate coverage that you don't need. Shop around. I highly encourage you, because so many companies want new, good customers. They're willing to pay a bigger discount or give you a bigger discount to come over as a new customer. On your home, and especially in Oklahoma, because you've got tornadoes that roll through, hailstorms, things like that, look at your deductibles on your homeowner's insurance and look at your roof. Make sure that you don't have a too large of a deductible or a small deductible that's costing you a lot of money out there. Also look at replacement value. Many companies will put a automatic 5% increase on your home value for replacement cost, which over a time period can really get out of whack. House prices are selling for a lot, but selling price and replacement cost are not the same thing. Make sure you understand the difference. You can save money that way. And if you've done any major renovations, like put a roof on, new AC units, things like that, call your insurance agent because they can put discounts on for that. And finally, in the area of life insurance, David and I are big believers in making sure that you have life insurance, but make sure to look at your policies and see what needs you still have. If your children are no longer in the household and you no longer are responsible for them, you've paid off your mortgage, things like that, you may not need as much, or you may have had some through the school that you thought you kept that you don't have now, and you still need some type of coverage out there. Take a look at that. Take a look at what your options are, because some policies have nursing home riders on them. Some are term policies for a certain period of time. Some may be permanent policies where you pay one price and you don't worry about anything like that at all. And then we have some people that say, you know what? I don't have any expenses left that I've got to worry about, whether I'm going to be cremated, whether I'm going to be buried. I've got all that taken care of, but I've got some grandkids that I want to pay for their college. I want to leave a legacy. This is a good way to do that in an inexpensive way, and you can take care of their future as well. So check those things out. All right. I want to spend a little bit more time on this conversation because we've been doing this through several states, and this has gotten a lot of conversation here. I want to talk about an ICOD folder, an in case of death or a disaster folder. And this is something that I've challenged myself to do with my mom, because I want to make sure that if something happens to her, passes away, medical situation, my brother and I know where all of her paperwork is. So we want to create an in case of death or disaster folder. I'm going to launch a quick poll real quick. And I want to ask how many of those on our call today have an ICOD folder? Yes or no? And if you just put that in there, it's anonymous. Just check, I've got one, or no, I don't have one. And that will kind of help me as we go through here, our conversation here. So we'll open it up to just a few more questions, a few more seconds here. All right. This is an interesting group here. I'll share the results here. We're 60-40 yes and no. That's great. There have been many states that I've been in where it's been flipped. It's been about 70% no and 30% yes. So we're going to talk about the key components of a good ICOD folder. And at the end of the conversation, I'm going to give you my email address and a way to contact me. I can send you a link to help you build your own folder and have these conversations here and why we're going to do that. So we're going to kind of roll through the 9 key steps that you need to put in place for your ICOD folder. Your life events, all of your documents, birth certificates, marriage certificates, divorce decrees, things like that. Then you want to get into your life insurance and your retirement documents. And I want to spend a little bit of time here for 2 reasons. First and foremost, I want everyone today on this conversation to check your beneficiaries, okay? Check who your life insurance beneficiaries are and who your pension beneficiaries are. For one reason and one reason alone. David hadn't been in this business as long as I have. I've been around a long time, but both of us have seen where we've taken out death benefit checks to ex-spouses because they never remembered to change their new spouse on their paperwork. So you talk about an uncomfortable conversation when I'm taking out a death benefit check to a former spouse and not to the current spouse, those type of things. Or when we take out the benefit checks to 2 of 3 children because that 3rd child didn't get put on the beneficiary paperwork. Please make sure you check your beneficiaries. Also, when you're going through and talking about your pension paperwork, make sure you have in there what the details of your pension after you pass away are. Some of you have taken a pension to where once your pension stops, nobody in the household gets anything else. Some of you have a pension plan that pays your survivors for as long as they're alive. Make sure that's understood. Make sure that paperwork confirms that in that part of your ICOD folder there. Then on the banking side, make sure you've got all of your account numbers because we do a lot of virtual banking, passwords, login information, things like that. And if you have a safety deposit box, put what is in there. Put what that key's to. My father-in-law's dad passed away about 5 years ago and left him an envelope with 8 keys. He had to go all over South Houston, going into different banks saying, is this your key? Does it go to a box? Put down what those keys are for. So make sure that you do that when it comes to the banking side of things. Now, when you talk about assets and liabilities, it's important to put in all of your deeds, your property deeds, land deeds. If you have cemetery plots, make sure you have that information there. Did this conversation in Florida last week. Had a retired principal call me and say, I just read where more people are deciding they don't want to be buried, but they've got these cemetery plots. They want to be cremated. They don't want to, take up space, cost, whatever it is, but they've got these prepaid cemetery plots. There are brokers, just like timeshare brokers, that will resell your cemetery plots. So it could be some money that you have if you don't want to have a cemetery plot there. For example, my mom wants to be buried 400 miles away from where we live, or she has a plot 400 miles away. She has to tell me whether she wants that plot or not, when she wants to be buried there. But in your assets, put all those things there, put all of your other retirement things, your nest egg stuff, your IRAs, 401ks, 403b things from when you were a teacher, including all your passwords. Same thing for your liabilities, all of those debts. If you have a reverse mortgage, put that information in there as well. And then if something happened to you, whether you passed away, whether you went into the hospital, weren't coming back, things like that, what are we doing with our monthly expenses? Who do we need to contact about turning some of these things off, things of that nature, making sure that those things keep current. And finally, the last three things you need to put in a good iCod folder, all of your email, computer sign-ons, social media passwords, all that kind of stuff, your contact details. Who's your doctor? And do this for yourself. If you got elderly parents, the same thing with them. David's contact information or your AMBER representative, lawyers, ministers, financial advisors, insurance brokers, things of that nature. And then put the essential documents like the wills, the medical power of attorneys, those conversations, those wishes, what you want done at the end of your life, that type of thing. So put all those instruction letters in there. Your kids will thank you. You will thank your parents if you do it with your parents now. So it's a lot less difficult conversation when the grief sets in, things like that, when some event happens. So again, if you want this checklist, we'll show you how to get that here at the end of our conversation today. And this is why I'm having this conversation. I really wanted to put this together to challenge myself. This picture here is two of my three most important women in my life. It's my daughter and my mother. Of course, my wife's number one. My mom turns 81 in May. And at Christmas, I noticed my mom repeating herself a little bit more, getting confused a little easier, having to write more things down. And so I did a little research, and there's some questions that whenever I'm building her iCod folder with her, I've already given her the checklist. We're going over it periodically when I go see her, is to what do we need to ask her further as we go through here. So we're talking about all of those financial documents out there, getting her will, her power of attorney, those type of things. When can I meet with any of her advisors, her insurance agent, her banker, that kind of stuff like that, who her doctors are. She likes to go to one particular pharmacy. What kind of medication is she taking? All those things, so that if I have to answer the question, my brother has to answer those questions, that type of thing. And then we're going to get into that deeper conversation about her long-term care needs. And if you've been on this call, you know that my father spent the last 2 years of his life in a long-term care facility because of dementia. And so the topic is there. He passed away October of 2020. And so I'm going to ask my mom, what happens? What kind of care do you need when you have to bathe? Somebody has to bathe you or dress you or wipe your backside. What kind of care do you need? Do you want to stay in your home and we bring somebody in? Do you want to move in with me or my brother? Is my wife or my sister-in-law, are they really excited about that kind of stuff? Or is there a retirement community that you want to move to? Having those conversations now, whether it's for yourself, whether it's for your parents, can save you a lot of headache. And there are ways that you can prepare for that in advance. And then again, what her wishes are. She's kind of on the fence whether she wants to go back 400 miles for her final, for her resting place up there, because all of her family, friends, church, and all that are down here in Houston. So those type of things. And then if there's a medical crisis, what she wants kind of treatment as well. So ask those questions now. Having that stuff on paper, always you can change it, but just having it down now in case something happens, because being prepared is so important because we don't know what's going to happen. There's a neat resource that I'm highly encouraging you to get. I can send you the link to this as well. It was produced by AARP and the University of Minnesota. It's that whole roadmap to that financial side of the house conversation. That if it's you with your parents or if it's you with your children, how to organize your financial information, how to have that conversation about who's going to help me advocate and handle my finances as I get older. So that whenever the time comes and my brother and I with my mom say, hey, Mom, you can no longer handle your finances appropriately. Let's do this. We've got that conversational roadmap taken care of there. It's a really a neat tool. You can do it online and print it, or you can print it off and handwrite it in there. It's a PDF. It's really a very nice guide. Helps you think about all those things in one place there. We can send that link to you as well. Okay. And then finally, I just want to finish up our conversation today talking about the top threats to your nest egg. Now, when you're thinking about nest egg, I'm not talking about your pension check that comes every month. I'm talking about that money you've saved outside of your pension. The money that you put in a 403B, a 401k for a spouse, IRA, something like that. The top 5 threats that can really scramble that nest egg are taking care of elderly parents, having to be responsible for them, the death of a spouse without life insurance, boomerang children that come back and you're responsible for them as well, a medical crisis like a cancer diagnosis, heart attack, stroke, something like that, or overexposure to the stock market as we age. And I want to hit on that 5th one real close here before we wrap it up today, because overexposure to the stock market as you age is really something that our generation and older, we've experienced a really good stock market run the past 15 years. But if we were to retire and we have this retirement nest egg out there, and all of a sudden the stock market gets another hit like it did back in 2007, 2008, when it dropped almost 50%, do we have time to rebuild that money? You know, so having a plan to protect that nest egg that you've built up as you age is so vitally important, so that you're not overexposed to the stock market when it can go up and down. And I will tell you, if David and I were experts and knew when this was going to happen, you wouldn't see us on this webinar. We'd have 2 big yachts side by side down in the Caribbean, and you wouldn't be able to find us. But history has shown since World War II, there have been 12 bear markets, and where the market has dropped over 30% for greater than a year. And it's taken sometimes up to 2 years to recover. It's been a long time since that's happened. We don't know when that's going to happen, but history shows that it will happen. And I don't want to be in a position to where I've got my nest egg exposed out there and don't have time to recover it while I still need to have my retirement years out there. And so people say, well, just throw it all into a CD rate, into a savings account. Well, what are you making right now on your CDs? You know, what is the bank paying for CD rates, for savings rates? It's nowhere near what inflation is. And I clipped these inflation things out there back in October, and it was at 6+%. It was over 7% in December. You're losing money having that money sitting in the bank out there, because it's maybe safe, but they're taking away 5 or 6% every month because your purchasing power is going down. One option could be an OREA endorsed wealth management solution that gives you the ability to take the gains in the stock market, but if there's a drop, you don't lose any money. So you know that your money is totally protected out there. You can have a wide variety of ways that you strategize with this. It gives you a lot of liquidity that you can access your money if you need it. The thing I like about it, because like I said, my experience with my father in long-term care, that I have a plan inside of this program that allows me, if I need long-term care, I can get it. But I don't necessarily have to purchase long-term care. So it gives me the best of both worlds. It's really an interesting thing. I'd encourage you to look into that, because it can protect you from those ups and downs and give you a steady stream of income that you've got for many more years of living. So many of us have to worry about inflation, health issues, things like that. You don't have to worry about something like that with this OREA endorsed solution that's out there for you. So it gives you an opportunity, because once we hit age 65, chances of living to 90 are very good. So that's a lot of time that we still have left to live. and we've got to make sure we've got the finances to outlive that. So I'm going to pause this conversation right now. I'm going to stop recording.